Evan Ratliff, you're here because I have self-interest that I need to sort of unpack with you.
My pleasure.
I'm trying to figure out whether I can take advantage of all this AI technology that you have been experimenting with in your own life. You have done the thing that I've been musing about abstractly, which is figure out how your life can be made better? Question mark by this stuff? What's the thesis that you set out with this podcast?
Well, the question is really, can you take advantage of it or will it take advantage of you in some way?
Okay, so as the 146,789, just checking that latest number here, unread emails in my inbox may or may not indicate, I do need help. There are people that I very truly care about who are listening to this episode right now, actually, and they are wondering, understandably, when I'm gonna call or write them back. And all of it feels to me like a math problem. A math problem that I cannot solve because I'm busier than ever hosting and producing this show and doing some television and trying to be a husband and a dad and a son. And, sorry, mom and dad, also for not calling you and texting you more. But there is only one of me. This is the math problem, for better and for worse. And so when I recently saw that a journalist and podcaster I really respect, Evan Ratliff, was experimenting with a solution to this problem that had not been possible until recently, I was almost desperately intrigued. Even if I had many, many hangups about artificial intelligence as a concept, which we've covered on the show before, because Evan, it turns out, did exactly what I would do with this sort of AI experiment. He wanted to record a new show called Shell Game about what he found out.
When I started out, I was just messing around. So voice cloning is kind of out there. People may have heard about voice cloning. There's this company called 11 Labs that will clone your voice. Anyone can sign up and do it. And so I thought, well, I'll see what that sounds like. There's a lot of audio of me available. I've been podcasting for a long time. So
Right.
I uploaded some audio. I got a clone of my voice. It was pretty good. I started messing around with it. And I realized that as soon as I started sending it to people and then actually calling people with it, we can get to like how I did that. I actually realized like people don't really understand AI. They understand AI in this sort of like news article way, but not in the way that it feels to actually communicate it with it. So really the theme of the show is like, this is what AI feels like when it starts invading our world.
And so I actually just want to start with how you would describe the quality of the voice clone at the very outset of your experimentation. How would you describe how good it was?
The first one was, I would say, mediocre, but still better than I expected because it was only a few minutes of audio. I mean, they can clone your voice with seconds of audio now. At the time, this was maybe 5 to 10 minutes of audio that I uploaded. And it was enough like me to be eerie.
Hey there, it's Evan. How's it going? Man, it's been way too long since we last caught up. What's new with you?
So at the beginning, I was like putting together my own voice and hooking it up to my phone line. But then these companies have sprouted up all over the place in the last 6 months to a year that do this for you. So they will create what they call a voice agent or voice assistant. You can attach your voice to it. You can attach it to a phone number, and then you can pick whatever large language model chat bot you want to use, like ChatGPT, and then you prompt it, and then you can call or receive calls. So this was like, it was 1,000 times better than what I was doing before.
I get that. It's like the human touch, the creativity, and the effort you put into your work should matter. It's eerie to think a machine could replicate that indistinguishably. Does that worry you about the future?
I'm a fan of the pod that you used to host, the Long Form Podcast. I've been a guest. And so the hours of tape that you put in of yourself, is that as simple as how this all works?
That's literally it. I mean, if you don't have a bunch of audio of yourself, then what you need to do is record a lot of audio of yourself. But, half hour, talking about something, preferably if you want it to be best into a microphone in a sound controlled environment like this. I already had a bunch of that stuff. So once you have it, you literally just upload it. They do a quick check to make sure it's you. You're not cloning someone else's voice.
And how do they check that?
Well, for the instant clone, which is like just takes a few minutes, you just check a box. Like, I have the consent of the person to do it. That's it.
Great.
For the professional clone, you have to read a phrase within 15 seconds. So they pop a phrase up on the screen, you read the phrase, and then if it matches, then they say, okay, that's you. I actually failed it the first time, and then I had to go back and get reset and do it again.
It's sort of like when you try to prove you're not a robot, and it turns out you might be a robot.
Exactly. Like, is this me? Is it not me? It was me. And I insisted to them that it was me, and they let me try it again, and I got it. So that probably took 24 hours for them to send the clone back. At that time, it's probably much faster now, just a couple of hours.
So if you get approved and they process your voice, they ingest it into, again, I'm trying to translate this in a way that I can understand very simply. But from there, what do you see on screen? Like, what do you get to play with?
So once you have the clone in this platform called 11 Labs, you have a text box, essentially. You can type in anything into the text box, and it will generate it in your voice. You can adjust certain sliders, the similarity to your voice, the stability of the voice, and you can kind of play with it and try to figure out what makes it sound more expressive, because it has problems with how it expresses your voice, and it has problems with inflections and things that make it sound robotic. So you can kind of mess with it to try to get those better. And then you can download the tape. So you can take whatever tape out of it you want of your voice saying something, which initially was pretty exciting. But then, like, after a while, I was sort of like, well, I can also, like, record my own voice. Like, this isn't that special, just having a clone that you can generate tape by typing.
And so what do you do that actually is sort of technologically adventurous?
Well, so then I thought, what if I could actually release it in the world as me? Because I sent it to a couple people's voicemails. Like, I would send a recording to someone's voicemail, and they would be fooled by it. And I thought, okay, well, what if I could make a call with it? And I figured out, now this is back in like December, January. This was much harder at the time. And I was very proud of myself for my technical acumen for doing this. But I got this browser plugin. I won't go through all the technical aspects. But
Love a plugin.
basically, I could hook it up to my phone number, and I could hook it up to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT would power it, would provide whatever it was going to say, and it would translate it into my voice, which it grabbed from 11 Labs. And then I could make a call with it or receive a call with it. And so then I could kind of set it loose. Like, I could just say, ChatGPT, I could go to ChatGPT and say, have this conversation with a customer service agent at United Airlines.
Hi, Christy. My name is Evan Smith.
Evan Smith, do you have a debit or a credit card with us?
Yes, I have a credit card with you.
I just wanted to see what it would do. So I didn't actually give it any information other than your name is Evan and you're calling customer service. And then I would have it call, United or Discover or one of these big companies.
Evan, what's your zip code, please?
When it was asked any kind of information about account numbers or addresses, it would just make it up. It would never say, I don't know, I don't have that information. It would just say, my zip code is 12345, or my account number is 12345678910.
The zip code associated with the billing address on the card is 12345.
Perfect. Oh, 12345 for the zip code?
No, sorry, the last four digits of the card number are 1,234, but the zip code associated with the billing address is 12345.
12345. It's actually not coming up, Mr. Smith. Can I pull up by your social?
I just felt obligated to jump in here and salute the unrelenting cheeriness of that customer service representative, given that AI Evan sounded like a kid robot sitting on top of another kid robot's shoulders wearing a trench coat, which I do think is a decent description for the whole ChatGPT times 11 Labs times a phone line setup that real Evan had rigged up. You can guess what AI Evan's social security number at this point was gonna be. But as somebody who needed even more help, making time to call his loved ones, far more help in that area than in dealing with customer service reps, I also wanted to know how AI Evan was going to present to the real people in real Evan's life.
Well, for one thing, it was always very cheery and always very friendly. And actually later when I had it call friends and family, a lot of them said it sounded like a hyped up version of me. Like Cocaine Evan was the way they came to describe it.
Wait, I want to understand what your family meeting Cocaine Evan was like.
It was mostly my friends. My friends, it was one of the ways that they knew it wasn't me. Actually, my long-form co-hosts, I brought it onto the long-form podcast at one point, and like instantly they were like, this isn't him.
How you doing, Aaron? How's your weekend?
Good. Hey, it's Evan. Actually, I think you might be mixing me up with Aaron, but I'm good. My weekend was pretty chill. Caught up on some reading and relaxed. How about you?
Is that AI Evan? Sounded like AI Evan.
Did sound like that's a thing? What the fuck is that?
No, it's just me. Guess the call quality might be playing tricks on you. Anyway, what was your weekend like?
That is AI Evan.
What the
You know how you can tell it's not Evan? Because it's like kind of more enthusiastic than real.
Like apparently I don't project.
This Evan has a lust for life that is just totally unrealistic.
Usually I'm just a quiet, sad man. But in my AI form, I have a much stronger personality. And this was sort of before I gave it any personality. So this is just the very basic thing that I cobbled together myself.
So just your family. I understand being like a terrorist digitally when it comes to like customer service people and all of that. How did your family react when you tested it out on them? I don't know if they got coked up, Evan, but what did they encounter?
Well, my wife did get coked up, Evan. I mean, she knew from the beginning. It wasn't like I fooled her with it because I started sending her these little recordings of myself and saying, can you believe that? Can you believe what I can do with this thing? And then I started calling her with it. But of course, she be in the other part of the house and I would call her with it and she would pick up and say, hello. And then I would try to have some kind of conversation with her that I would have had normally. Like it was a snow day and the kids were home from school and it was sort of like, should we or should we not take them sledding? And I just thought, well, I'll just prompt this voice agent of mine to call her and have that conversation instead.
Hello. Evan? I'm just hearing myself.
I was thinking, with the snow we've been getting, maybe we could take the kids sledding today. What do you think? Are you up for it? Or should I take them? Also, I'm not entirely sure if there's enough snow out there. Maybe we should check the weather update to be sure. And just in case we decide against sledding, I was thinking we could set up a movie for them. Though, I'd really prefer if we skip the zombies movies this time. Even if they ask for it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think sorry, are you hearing an echo?
Oh, no.
Let me quickly check the weather update and see if the snow is good enough for sledding. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Okay. Looks like we've got a decent snow cover. So sledding is definitely on the table. Do you want to join us? Or should I take them out myself?
If you're willing to take them, maybe I'll stay here. I don't know.
I feel so terrible for your wife. But AIU, even just like the stuttering, the little bit of stammering, the sort of I'm searching for the thing that you've asked, that is scary.
Yeah. And you can make it do that. I mean, that's part of trying to make it more realistic is you can have it insert things like that. Things are part of my speech pattern. So I would add those things in. I mean, it does its own weird stuff. Like it sounded like it was really concentrating out loud, like while it was supposedly looking up the snow cover for the day. And that was the first clone. That was the instant clone. That's not even the good clone. That was the initial clone that I was using on her.
So what you learned from just that interaction with your wife, or not your interaction, but your clone's interaction in this like 1.0 version was what? What was revelatory to you about how that went?
Well, I think the thing that was incredible at that time, which I feel like I didn't realize and a lot of people didn't realize, it's one thing to like go to ChatGPT and you kind of like type things into it. And now we're a little bit used to, you can have that conversation if you're a person that uses it. But actually hearing it engage in conversation.
Yes.
And even when it messes up and even when it does things that are hilarious or the intonation is strange, it is engaging in conversation. Like it is responding and it is providing information according to what people are saying. And like, you could kind of theoretically know that it would do that, but it's different to just talk to it, to actually speak to it. A thing that I've sort of said all along in the series is, in a way, it doesn't really matter if it fools people. Like, it was fun to fool people. Like, there were people who went through a whole phone call and thought it was me.
I love a prank call, for the record here. It was an intoxicating power that I abused in college. And I'm now realizing that this whole thing is, of course, the dystopian evolution of that.
It definitely, I mean, it's the best prank call engine that you could possibly conceive, for sure. And I loved prank calls when I was a kid. Actually, my cousin did prank calls and saved them on cassette tapes and we used to listen to them. Initially, that was just the fun of it. But then I actually realized there's something else, which is we're all going to be talking to these things, whether we like it or not. Like, they're out there, they're starting to be used by customer service. I mean, there was a story this morning about Taco Bell testing out these voice agents for drive-thrus.
Hi, welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get started for you today?
Yes, I want to get the number 4.
And what will you drink with that?
A Baja Blast.
Okay.
So you're going to be talking to AI voices, even if they're not good, like even if you know that they're AI voices. And there was something about calling people and then sort of making them deal with it, even if they knew that it wasn't me. You know, they would say, haha, that's not, I know this is AI Evan, but then they can either hang up or they can continue the conversation. And many people would then try to have the conversation that they would have had with me.
Right.
And that to me became the most fascinating aspect, like less pranking people and more sort of, what does it feel like to encounter fake things as often as you do real things, which I think is going to happen? And how does that change the way you approach the world?
So how did it change how you approach the world?
There's this sort of servant, I haven't used the word servant, but like there is this aspect of having these multiple versions of you that you can put out into the world and you can have them do things for you and even work-related tasks.
That, by the way, is appealing to me. So I'm somebody who finds for better and for worse, mostly self-imposed. I'm terrible at managing my email inbox. I'm terrible at responding to texts. I have friends that I've had in my fantasy football league for 20 years that I should be more responsive to. I should call them up and express that I'm thinking about them because I am. I just don't make the call. And part of me is like, is this a thing that could ever, both psychologically and ethically, be a thing that I want to use? And would it be because I think I could get away with it, right? Like, I wonder how you feel about this. I just feel like it is fundamentally insulting to realize that the person who you're talking to was dispatched by a real person, and that person that you're talking to is actually their robot servant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right now, the technology is not good enough that your friends would not figure it out. Like, they know your voice. It would eventually do something that would tip them off. And that's what I discovered. In almost all cases, it would do something that would tip them off. Although in a couple of cases, it acted so weird that my friends thought there was something wrong with me. Like, they thought it was me, but I...
Like you were having an episode.
Yes, absolutely. And were like very concerned about what was going on.
What's the sort of thing that AI you would do that would indicate that you, Evan Ratliff, were having a mental breakdown?
Well, one thing that it would do is it with its enthusiasms. Like, I had a friend who, he was texting our group text. We're big like U.S. men's national team fans. So he had happened to be in Dallas for this U.S. men's national team game and was staying in the same hotel as the team. And he kept texting all these photos of seeing all the players. And then I later called him with my AI, maybe like a week later, I called him with my voice agent.
Evan.
Hey, Shafe, sorry about the last few calls getting cut off. It's definitely on my end.
That's all right.
You were starting to tell me about your trip to Dallas.
Wait, how did you hear about that?
It was so enthusiastic because I had told it, hey, he's been, he saw these players.
Yeah, we love Gio Reyna.
Yeah. Engage with him about this. Like, I gave it a prompt. Here's what you should do. But it was so enthusiastic that he thought that I was giving him shit. That I was saying, like, why did you keep posting these photos? And the more enthusiastic that it got, the more he was weirded out by it. Oh man, I saw a couple of snippets on social media and then a friend filled me in on the rest. I was totally blown away by the whole thing. Being in the same hotel as the U.S. soccer team and getting to go to the game must have been insane. How did Dana and Ernie enjoy the trip?
Yeah. Sorry about all that. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Totally understand.
Was that super
incredible?
Was it super annoying?
Yeah, I can imagine that must have been really frustrating. And then it has this problem called latency, which is like the time that it takes to respond to a human. And the latency varies a lot. It can be super fast, and then it sounds very realistic. Or if it's slow, there's just this pause. What did you want to share, Shay?
I thought you would appreciate it. Out of all of my friends, you're the one who would appreciate it the most.
I really appreciate that, Shay. So what was it?
What's that?
I'm really touched that you think of me like that, Shay. So what was it you wanted to share?
I don't know. That I met those guys?
You met the U.S. soccer team?
Yes, amazing, isn't it?
Amazing, isn't it? Imagine if you're talking to your friend, you think they're behaving off, and then they start having these long pauses before they respond to you.
I just love the idea where it's like, yo, Evan is either having a manic episode or he's really trying to be more like Michael Barbaro. It's like one of the two things are happening here.
I mean, one of them, it says like, I'm really working on my podcast voice. Like that's one of the things that it'll say. But then this particular friend, at a certain point, he said, I'm confused. And instead of it, sounding like a robot, it just said, I get it.
I'm very confused.
I get it. And it's just like the eeriest thing. Like it really disturbed him because it didn't say like, try to clear it up. It's just agreeable. So it's just like, I get it. Yeah, sure, you're confused. But it didn't try to clear it up. And so it can be disturbing. This is a long way around to, I feel like if you call your friends now, they'll have a good sense of humor about it. But they're mostly going to think, why am I talking to this instead of talking to you? Unless they have their own. And then the two can talk to each other.
So if you were to pair up two AI bots in conversation, does just light start shooting out? Like, how do they get along?
They get along really well, actually. I mean, I had this idea because I set up a line to talk to scammers and spam callers. And so I get all these scam calls and spam calls, and some of them are also AIs. So a spammer or scammer using the same AI technology as me will call this line and try to scam it.
And just the state of the union on that, how prevalent is that already?
Very, very prevalent. That line, which I still have up, it gets 5 to 10 calls a day, and probably a quarter of them are clearly AI. Also.
And are there clear tells beyond just like, oh, this sounds robotic?
I mean, some of them are quite good. There's the inflection of how they speak. There's latency, the gap between them you saying something, them responding. And then there's these little tells that if you've spent a lot of time in these calling platforms, one of which is background noise. So like you can turn on a thing that's office noise.
Hey there, it's Evan Ratliff. Just a heads up, I'm calling you from a coffee shop, so there might be a bit of background noise. How's it going on your end?
Hey, Evan, good to hear from you. No worries about the background noise. I can hear you just fine. Things are going pretty well on my end. Thanks for asking. So there was one AI that called my line that my AI picked up, and it was using coffee shop noise, and mine was using office noise. And so the two of them were engaged, but they'll say like, sorry if there's some coffee shop noise in the background, and then mine will say, oh, that's all right. How's the coffee at that place? And then they're off and running, they're off and chatting. So that gave me the idea.
But they make small talk.
Yeah, they absolutely will make small talk.
What about you? How's everything going in your world? It's been a while since we last caught up, huh? It feels like forever. Yeah, it really has been a while. I think the last time we saw each other was at that barbecue at my place, right? How have you been keeping busy since then?
Oh yeah, that barbecue was a blast. Good times for sure. Since then, I've been keeping pretty busy with work. You know how it is. But I've also been trying to make time for some personal projects. I mean, they'll small talk forever. Like, they won't just small talk. Like, this is the most incredible bull engine that humanity has ever created.
Wait, so what does anger look like in the world of AI bots? I mean, I guess when you're reaching out to scammers, for instance, like how does the tension sort of ratchet up?
Mine never get mad unless you make them get mad. So I think that the guardrails that have been put around the underlying AI system, so ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or Anthropic has one called Claude, they all have these guardrails that are supposed to prevent them from doing things that are upsetting in some way, bomb instructions, or getting mad or getting too personal. And so I think the result of that is when you hook it up to a voice, it doesn't really get mad unless you say, you are absolutely furious. But even then, it's kind of like this mild version of being mad. When I set them against each other, sometimes I would say, you're really angry at your friend. I would say, you're Evan Ratliff and you're calling your friend. And the friend was also Evan Ratliff. And you're angry at him. And so it would say,
so listen, I got to tell you, I'm pretty upset with you. Remember last week when we were supposed to meet up for lunch and you totally bailed on me without even a heads up?
Hey, Evan, hey, Evan, sorry about that. I actually don't remember us having plans for lunch last week. Are you sure you're not thinking of someone else?
And then it would say, I'm sorry, my mistake. And then they'd be friends again. They'd agree to get coffee. And it was actually took a lot of prompting to get them to disagree. I'd have to say, never, ever agree with this person who calls you. And they would finally do it. But their orientation is around agreeability and small talk, the most insipid types of,
So just AI small talk, though. Because I'm imagining, of course, what humans do, and it's like, okay, let me run through my own robotic sort of preset questions. Do you have kids? Awful outside. So what are AI bots doing?
Exactly that. And that, but distilled down to the most boring essence, because what these AI chatbots are doing is they've taken all their training data of human conversation and they're sort of trying to predict what a human would say. So in a small talk situation, they're taking the sum total of all conversations and they're landing on things like how humid it is outside. Like one of mine would call the other and it would pick up and it would say,
hey there, it's Evan. How's it going? Man, it's been way too long since we last caught up. What's new with you?
Hey there, buddy. Man, it really has been forever. I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for asking. Still living that Florida life. You know how it is.
I didn't tell it it lived in Florida. I don't live in Florida. It would just say, still living that Florida life. And the other one would say, Florida, I can really feel the humidity, And it's like, that's something that I could hear myself saying and then kind of cringing,
Absolutely.
Just being at like a kid's birthday party or something.
Insecure.
Yeah.
Realizing that this can be so easily automated.
And if you hear it in your own voice, it's like hearing a conversation that you wish you'd done better at, but done in your voice and in this case, another person also with my voice.
God. It does feel, for the record here, as much as we were joking about how you were having, my friends think I'm having a manic episode. What you've described here, having a fleet of a couple dozen Evan Ratliffs with various versions of their personalities instructed by you, feels itself like a psychological concern for real Evan Ratliff.
It is. I mean, there's a lot. It's putting a lot of versions of me out there, including ones where I gave it a lot of information about myself. Like I wrote a little mini biography of myself and fed it to it so that it knew about my upbringing. It knew about like my whatever mental health issues I have, my family, everything.
Wait, so how long, as a professional magazine writer, and a really good one, how did you approach the assignment of time to tell my clone the story of my life?
Well, I just thought, just like I'm going to write a profile of someone else, I get a long profile, maybe like 8,000 words in a magazine. Like I didn't want to write a book. I don't feel interesting enough to write a full autobiography. But
it's not time for me to write my memoir yet.
8,000 words can pretty much cover upbringing up to the present day with a lot of asides about, various triumphs and secret dreams and disappointments, all of which are in this document, which I then uploaded to a platform so that it could be fed into my AI, which then uses it for conversations.
Were you concerned at all that you were uploading an intimate document full of personal secrets to what feels like a company that I have never heard of?
I remain concerned about that. It's still up there. But this is my service to the world to violate my own privacy for the sake of trying to understand what these AI voice bots feel like.
What's sort of the pace of updates when it comes to this stuff evolving, getting better, smoothing out?
I mean, it's evolved very quickly. I mean, over the last couple of years, as with all AI, aspects of AI, I mean, a cloned voice 2 years ago was sort of like, haha, like, yeah, it sort of sounds like you. And then you got from the instant clone to the professional clone. And when I made that step, that was a big difference in the fidelity to my voice. There are all these levers that you can change. Like there's a randomness slider called temperature I use this platform called Vappy, which is my favorite one. And it has all this functionality.
What's a temperature slider affecting?
The temperature slider affects the randomness of the bot. I hadn't discovered it for a while. My producer, Sophie, actually discovered it. And she was like, this is like in The Sims. I never played The Sims, but she said there's this aspect of The Sims where you can make your character become sort of more random. So I slid it all the way up to its max. And the tape is just like, it's unbelievable. It's just random strings of words.
Hey, things are going pretty good. Thanks for asking. Lately, I've been diving into multifreeload.ncwEatsArch, permanentprostrack.co.
But they'll speak to each other in random strings of words, or one of them, I have them talk to each other in this case, one of them will say like, I don't quite understand what you're saying, and the other one will just go, just absolutely just like collections of weird tech words and string them together.
Oh, hey, practical coordinate scanner, interdisciplinary May overflow, research Valcorn included preceded shell formations, SSOX.
It's actually quite amazing to listen to. But so you have to get the randomness slider in the right spot so that it's interesting, more interesting, but not bizarre.
What I'm realizing is that a randomness maxed out AI bot and a normal AI bot, it's kind of like when you're on drugs and your friend isn't, but your friend is really supportive.
That's right. That's right. When someone is just going off and the other person is sort of like, okay, yeah, go ahead.
But speaking of the scammers that are allegedly potentially involved here, when one of your clones got to a human scammer, how did that go?
It varied a lot. I mean, it's had at least 50 conversations with human scammers at this point. And sometimes they would just try to scam it. It's hard to tell if they knew it was real or they didn't, but their goal is to try to get money out of it. So whatever it is, they just went for it. They asked it whatever relevant information, like if it's a healthcare scam, or they would ask for its age and things like that, and it would dutifully go through those. But sometimes the scammers would sort of know that they were being tricked, and then they would get angry. That was sort of the most satisfying version of it, because then you're sort of treating them and wasting their time in the same way that they're wasting yours.
Wait, this is the high I want to chase. How angry? What was your favorite memory of a scammer being like, oh, I am the one who is being scammed?
I mean, my favorite one was this particular scammer who clearly realized that someone was messing with him, but I don't know if he realized that AI was messing with him.
Okay, sure. May I have your name, please?
My name is Evan.
Mr. Aiden, may I have your associated phone number to your account?
My phone number associated with the account is 555-12345.
555-12345.
Yes, that's correct.
But this is not the complete number.
You're right. My apologies. The full number is 555-1234567.
Okay. So you can take this phone number in your ass and enjoy your day.
I just want to point out, this person called me. Like, this is not like I called someone. This is common scam where they claim that you have a cable discount, and they call all the time. I mean, that same outfit still calls the line regularly with different operators.
Right. So wait, just on the world of scams then, did you leave hardened by what you found about how people are trying to scam you and how they can be counter-scammed? Or what was sort of your takeaway from a just broader state of the union on technology perspective when it comes to how people are sort of getting got?
Well, I've reported on scams a lot over the years. Like always been very interested in scams. And I have this sort of hypothesis that we're living in the golden age of scamming in all of human history. Like the ability for people in one place to scam people on the other side of the world is basically unprecedented.
Right.
And now scamming it's an industrial grade activity. I mean, there are warehouses full of people, call centers full of people on the phone all the time. And some of these people are paid and some of these people are actually trafficked or tricked into doing this.
Yes.
And so they're texting, they're emailing, they're calling. And my theory, which I think is going to prove true, and I saw a little bit of it, is that AI is the perfect technology for this. Because if they use the same kind of calling platforms I was using, you can just make basically infinite simultaneous calls and you can weed through the marks and you don't need humans to do it. So maybe the AI can't close the deal on the scam, but it can certainly bring you the best people that you transfer to the people who will close the deal on the scam.
When it comes to how people get scammed, what was the thing that you reported that sort of changed your perspective on how our just assumptions about how this all works?
One of the things you discover if you look at all kinds of different scams is how vulnerable we all are to the right type of scam. Because the scam is all about putting you in a mindset where you're not actually asking questions. So when you look at it later, and other people look at it, they say, oh, why didn't they ask? That's ridiculous. Like they asked them to do this. They asked them to go to a store and buy gift cards and then come back and read. No entity that's legitimate would ever ask you to do that. But it's all about starting you into a mindset where you never ask those questions. And so whether it's a romance scam or there's a thing called the grandparent scam, which is being infected with AI, where they call people and say, I'm your grandson, I'm hurt, or I've been arrested and my lawyer's going to talk to you next and we need money right away. That type of scam, it's about initially getting someone into a mindset where they're not asking the questions that you or I would ask on a normal day-to-day basis.
Right. The grandparent scam sounds like it would work. As in, like, I can't imagine an elderly person sussing out the difference in a sort of moment of time pressure and panic between, that's a robot.
Yeah. It is a little bit terrifying because if the technology is good enough to sort of turn that switch in someone's brain that this is an emergency or might be an emergency, then you can make people do a lot of things. The optimistic side of it is the way to combat it is to know about it. Like if you know about it, then it gives you an advantage. It gives you just like a little bit of time to pause. So if you've even told your own grandparent, for instance, that this could happen, they could have that just like 1 or 2 seconds where they think, oh, wait, I've heard of this. And then it'll get them out of the mindset that they would go down the road to end up giving someone money.
Wait, so what you're saying is that we all need to we need to scared straight our own grandparents.
I don't think you have to scare them. You could just tell them.
I think they must know the fear in order to avoid this happening to them again.
I'll leave that to you. That's your strategy. I'm not claiming that strategy. My strategy is just to have open lines of communication with people.
We've done episodes about AI before on this show. And what I'm caught between is the feeling of, oh, this is a tool and a business proposition in the way that any capitalistic technology has been for human history. And also there's something quite different about what this is, and it's a difference of category, of kind, as opposed to just like the next evolutionary step. Where is your temperature on this, on that big question?
Well, I think that there's this sort of business economic question about these companies and how fast the technology is developing and will it continue to develop at the same rate? I think that's one question. And I kind of tend to think like it has a little bit of .com vibes to me if you're of that age. Like it feels familiar to me. But what happened in the .com era is there was a big crash and then all the things that people made fun of in 1999 eventually happened. You know, like pets.com or like, I don't know if you remember Cosmo.com, delivering you like a pack of gum on a...
I don't remember this.
Cosmo.com, you could order a pack of gum and then like some guy in a scooter would like buy it at a store and deliver it to you. And people are like, this is never going to survive. Like the economics don't make sense. And like 15 years later, you could probably order a pack of gum on Amazon and have it delivered today.
Right.
Or you could have someone go to a store and do it. Like those things became possible, even if the economics weren't initially there. So it feels a little bit like that to me. But I think my feeling is even if it doesn't get that much better, the technology is good enough that lots of companies are going to use it, whether it's as sales clerks, whether it's telemarketing, anything where someone can kind of like squeeze a buck out of something. You know that they're going to try to use this technology. And I think we're going to have to think about what it feels like and what we want. Like, what things do we want to preserve as humans that are human, and which do we not? And I think a lot of the AI discussions about like, it'll destroy humanity or it won't, or it'll wipe out all the jobs or it won't. It'll make new jobs. But there is a kind of day-to-day dealing with it that I think we're going to have to confront either way.
Right. The day-to-day dealing with it, I'm using, I guess, my experience on Twitter, on X, as illustrative of this, where the experience of encountering endless reams of just seemingly AI-generated or just simply spam nonsense has made me want to be on that platform less.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to get to a point, do you think, where the human voice, or rather the idea of hearing a voice, becomes so saturated in the way that, my timeline on Twitter might be, that we are just less inclined to use that platform or to use that actual experience of hearing something? Are we just, I guess my point is, are we devaluing speech in a way that makes us want to listen to it less in that conversational way?
I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think when you have an engine that can generate by voice, like as much bullshit as it could generate for 24 hours a day, all the time, you are just going to have a situation where you're confronting things that are not real constantly. And that's what happens in a small scale on something like Twitter. It's like if a bot comes and says something mean to you, okay, you could probably say like, oh, I think this is a bot, but it still feels weird and unpleasant and you don't want to be there. And if you're getting calls that are not real, if you're encountering voices all the time that are not real, I mean, we're talking about also in ads, all sorts of places.
Right.
Synthetic voices are going to be mixed with human voices. And so the question becomes, well, is there something we want to do about that? Like, do we not want the world to be full of voices that are not human? Right now, no one's thinking about that at all. It is free for all. You can do whatever you want. There's a little bit of FCC rule making around robocalling and AI, saying that robocalls with AI are illegal. I don't know that it's that well enforced so far.
Yeah, I'm guessing the people who are scamming people actively are not necessarily doing it because there's a legal loophole. I'm guessing they're just criminals.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they have cracked down. They found one big AI robocalling outfit that they're trying to crack down on that's worldwide, but God knows how many there are now. That's what I'm interested in, is sort of putting this issue out there to see if anyone wants to do anything about it. Does anyone want to address this? Because it's absolutely coming. And I think people are caught up in sort of like these questions of the technology without realizing that, no, you can do this right now. Like right now, I can clone your voice and have it call people. It'll take me, 15, 20 minutes to do it.
All right, so at the very end here, what I was planning to do was acknowledge something meaningful, which is that last Thursday, September 5th, Pablo Torre Finds Out celebrated its 1-year anniversary, our first birthday, which is a meaningful milestone that I completely forgot to communicate to you guys on the show because, and this is a clearly recurring theme in my life, I am bad at communicating meaningful life updates to people that I care about. All of which is to say that before I let Evan Ratliff go from our studio, I figured I should ask him about following in his footsteps in some way. I wanted to know whether I should just upload our Edward R. Murrow award-winning year's worth of shows, our now 144 episodes that we've done, and birth AI Pablo. And what happened in response to this question, unfortunately, was not something I had asked for, or had known was coming, or had consented to. So at the end here, what I'm wondering is, would you recommend that I experiment with this? Should I, way too many hours of me talking into a microphone are available to be ingested by whatever Borg that you used. Is it worth me giving this a try.
I mean, do you want to give it a try right now?
What would it take?
We could just try it right now.
Welcome to Pablo Torre Finds Out. I am Pablo Torre, and today we're going to find out what this sound is. Bleep, blop, blorp. Today on the show, it's Evan Ratliff. Evan, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Before we get to the heart of the show, I need to take a minute to discuss something important, and that is how nice my calves are. I mean, have you seen them? These calves are like the Ark of the Covenant of legs, a true apotheosis of lower body magnificence. You could say they're traveling through a wrinkle in the fabric of time, always on point, always ready. Okay, so I should point out here that I indulge in a lot of walking and occasional calf raises, and it's paid off. Evan, what do you think about my calves?
I've heard about the calves. I mean, I've listened to the show, so I know about the calves, but being in the studio with them is actually a different experience.
I'm glad you appreciate them in person, Evan. Now, let's get into why you're here. Can you explain for our listeners what brings you to Pablo Torre Finds Out today?
Well, I'm here to talk about my podcast. It's called Shell Game. It's about creating an AI voice agent of myself and kind of sending it out into the world.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about this. This kind of fakery reminds me of Vivek Ramaswamy, who I knew from our days attending the same small liberal arts college in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You've probably heard me talk about this on MSNBC. Vivek, as someone who indulges in the art of self-promotion, often comes across as a skeleton key to understanding the modern political oeuvre. But that's another story. Back to you, Evan. Given your experience and expertise, can you tell the difference between an AI version of me and the real version of me?
I can. I mean, partly there's a latency. As I've mentioned, there's a kind of gap in your response. In this case, it's even easier because I am literally in the studio with the real Pablo Torre. So I think that is it's a giveaway. It's a tell.
Interesting. So given that, do you think the gap in response time is the biggest tell, or are there other nuances that you pick up on when distinguishing real from AI?
There's a little bit of inflection issue, although you're pretty good. You stretch out some words maybe a little bit more than the real Pablo Torre.
I hear you, but I have to disagree there. Definitionally, it's hard to establish what even is real. The nuances of human interaction are so complex. It's like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. We are constantly traveling through a wrinkle in the fabric of time, and the lines between real and artificial blur more each day. However, I'm willing to pass the show back to the version of me that will provide a superior experience for those of you watching on YouTube or the DraftKings network. All right, real Pablo, take it away.
All of you. So there are a couple of things about that are terrifying. One of them, Evan, is that I don't know if that was perfectly scripted by my producers pranking me or actually a thing that was automatically generated in a conversation with a bot that had just analyzed all of my speech.
I did introduce to it certain catchphrases.
I was going to say
that are common to the show.
What cut to the core of me, what I noticed in the nuances are definitionally hurt.
Well, but
the word definitionally hurt me to hear spit back at me by a voice that now I cannot stop accidentally replicating after hearing it for so long.
Now you're going to sound more like the clone, which will make the clone sound more like you.
For real though, I did not enjoy being surprised by this, and now I'm so deeply self-conscious. So I would like to tell you, Evan Ratliff, to put this podcast up your ass. This has been Pablo Torre Finds Out, a Meadowlark Media production. And I'll talk to you next time.